Hello and welcome to the agenda on Politics Social. I am Graham Hughes and I'm joined, as always, on the agenda by Phil Moorhouse. How you doing, Phil? You all right?
I'm all right, yes.
Good, good.
Yes.
How's your year been?
It's been a challenge on YouTube.
Yes, yeah. I mean, did you see after the election, did you see problems straight away or
No,
was there a little bit of a
I was
slowdown
told
going
by
on
YouTube there were problems straight away. I rode them out for a few weeks, but I think that was because of the riots.
there? Right.
So, yes, people obviously thought we're going to help the YouTubers out. We'll kick the shit out of a mosque. I'd rather
Yes.
they didn't. That's what happened.
Okay, so I'm gonna just say a big shout out to everyone in the chat. We've got Chrissy in there, we've got Vendetta and One Angry Pagan, Diz and others, Gallifreyan Ren is in there, Steve Martin. If you would like to join our wonderful friends in the chat, all you need to do is press the subscribe button under the video and you'll be allowed to join the chat. So we're going to be talking today about a year of Labour being in office, being in government.
So people keep doing this. I mean, I'll let you off because you don't do them on a Saturday. But I've seen so many people on social media go, "Oh, Labour's first year. Labour's first year's tomorrow."
Yeah, I know. But it ends today.
But others don't seem to know. There's loads of people doing stuff today, and it's like it's tomorrow.
It is technically tomorrow because they didn't actually become the government
election
until
this
July
time
the
last year.
5th. So July the 4th last year, we didn't know who was going to win.
We did, but we didn't know the results. So, and also, Rishi Sunak was still the Prime Minister on the morning of July the 5th.
Yeah.
So the government technically started when the King told Prime Minister,
Yes.
the Keir Starmer to be Prime Minister.
Well, we're reviewing the last 365 days, including this one. Does that work?
Yeah, not really, but go on. Because we don't know what they're doing today. We can't review today. We don't know what they've done.
They haven't done anything.
Well, exactly. So,
They're off.
but well, they're not off.
They are. It's recess
Parliament.
now, isn't it?
Yeah, but government doesn't have a recess.
Doesn't it? They'll
No.
just piss off on the summer holidays.
No. Well, you're allowed a holiday. But it doesn't mean to say they're leaving immediately for that.
I don't think they should be allowed holidays. You and I are not allowed holidays. Why are they? Hey? They've got a much more important job
I
to
don't
do.
want a holiday. I am allowed them. I had one 2 years ago. I don't like them.
Good afternoon. How are we feeling today? Asks Leapshin in the chat. Good gravy. The intro just about made me jump out my skin. Sorry about that. Did I use the horror intro by accident? What by-election results are those? Lib Dems got in. There was a couple of by-elections.
Loads of by-elections
last night.
Reform UK lost 2.
Yes, one here in Durham where they
Yes.
won back in May, and now when they redid them, they actually lost them. Which gives me a bit of hope. Okay, so let's talk about first what went right. NHS. Let's talk about the NHS to start on a positive.
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, they've actually got waiting lists going down over winter. Amazing what you do if you sort of say to doctors, "Yeah, I tell you what, we will pay you after all." The appointments they promised to get, the extra appointments they promised to add on, in terms of the initial lot of that, they've done that. There's a few things that are flying under the radar a little bit. So there's a huge row over physician associates because they're sort of medically trained, but not to the same level of a doctor. But a lot of people coming across them and thinking they were doctors. Just make sure they're only doing those things and that people are aware that these people are not doctors. So the patient needs to know who they're talking to. So there are actually moves underway to make sure that gets sorted out. So that was good as well. We obviously had the 10-year plan.
Sorry, we dropped out there for a moment. Sorry, anyone getting buffering. Phil was just talking about people who are, what's the official title? The people who are not quite doctors, but you can go and see
Physician associates.
Physician associates.
PAs.
Yeah.
That should be, again, they have their role. You just need to make sure they're not doing things for which they're not qualified and that patients do not think they're doctors. So you sort those two things out, there isn't a problem. The 10-year plan was announced yesterday. There's more details in that. Do you know what? If that happens in terms of their vision of it, when people say, "Oh, Labour don't have a vision," I mean, that's a massive vision. Literally.
Hang on, we just dropped out again. Sorry.
I had this on Saturday.
Really? Well, our connection's fine. Like, I'm hearing you
My
constantly.
connection was fine as well. Last Saturday,
What, OBS was
everything was
dropping
fine at
out?
my end.
You don't use OBS, do you?
No.
Well, that's a bit weird. Sorry, it just dropped
But
out
obviously,
again.
we're not streaming with what I'm using. Then there's
It's very windy here.
yeah. So imagine you've got a local centre where you can go in if you need a scan or anything, ultrasound, X-ray, that sort of stuff. Mental health support. It'd be nice to actually have some mental health
I
support.
would like to be able to
But also,
walk to my mental health support group.
yeah. Also, it would be a centre where it would have some primary care facilities, and you could include other things in it as well. So they're talking about, you could have spaces in there for people to be able to get debt advice. So a bit like citizens' advice in some ways.
Yeah.
Debt advice, employment advice, advice for some of the sort of things that lead to health problems.
Yeah.
All of this, I mean, I don't imagine even in this 10 years we'll see it all firing on all cylinders in terms of that vision. But just something like that would be really good.
Yeah, and there's a new app that they're going to create, which
Yes.
isn't going to cost 39 billion like the one that Dido Harding was supposed to have made. But there has been 10 billion earmarked, up to 10
Yes.
billion, earmarked for tech upgrade. So that is going to be unified patient records and also this new and updated NHS app. At the moment, you can use your NHS app to, I think, get repeat prescriptions.
Yeah,
and a
you
few
can do
other
stuff like that.
things
Yeah.
that you can do on it. But they want to make it so that you can get to see a health professional
Yeah.
through the app, and you don't have to have the 8 a.m. scramble.
Yeah.
Also, there will be AI integrated into the app. So if you've just got a common ailment and you say,
Yeah.
I have a problem with this, what could it be? You get a sensible answer instead of having to
Yeah.
type it into Google and being told to use, I don't know, white wine, vinegar, and bicarbonate of soda, which seems to be the answer to any question you ask the internet. Don't ask the internet questions, it's full of shit.
No.
The downside of this is that Planeteer is involved in it.
Palantir, yeah.
Palantir.
But I mean, it's one of those things. Yeah. But the problem is they already run the NHS systems, so doing it all from scratch would take too long.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
People are saying we should get rid of Wes Streeting. I agree. I think he's a terrible person to be in charge of health. I think he should be in charge of executions and dungeons. I think he'll do a good job
We
at
don't
that.
want either of those things. They're not
Yeah, I know,
nice.
but he won't.
But I mean, I said from the start, I'd have preferred. I'm absolutely fine with him being a senior cabinet minister, but he should have been in a different department. That being said, you can't change it
shiny
now.
face smugness.
Yeah, you wouldn't change. If I was suddenly made prime minister, if they said, "Look, Phil, we're going to get you a by-election and we want you to take over," I'm going to actually say I would actually keep him there, because
Oh my
if
God.
you change something now, honestly, if you change something now, you just stop everything.
We just lost half our
Everything's-
viewers, Phil.
Government stop. Well, no, but what
But
do
he might
people
die.
dislike?
Something might happen. You don't know.
What I mean, what's people's main beef with Streeting? The trans policy, but the trans
He's a
policy.
massive transphobe.
Yeah, well, he
And
may or
he's-
may not be.
And he's really
But
smug
the-
and shiny-faced.
He is smug. He is smug.
And shiny-faced.
But the I don't have an issue with that.
I do. His face is too shiny.
But it's good for reflecting the sun, I assume. Is helping climate change. That's come centrally. That is central. See, we don't even know if he's a transphobe or not. It doesn't matter. It's no, Labour is transphobic right now. Labour is. This has come from centrally.
Yeah.
So I could just change that policy, and then
There
what
are
would
Labour
people win?
MPs speaking out about the transphobia in the party.
Yeah, good. As they should.
I've just applied for mine.
But it is transphobic. Labour is right now, in terms of its policies. I don't like saying it, but it is a fact. It is transphobic.
Yeah. So I've just got my applied for my conference ticket for the conference at the end of September in Liverpool, the Labour Party conference, and I will be flying the trans flag. We'll have a discussion about it close to the time, but I really want to be talking to MPs and seeing how many I can get on side. And Rachel and I are talking about, my private school mafia website. It's going to be a list of all the transphobes, basically the shit list. The shitlist.uk. And it's going to identify the transphobe and also identify the people.
It's not always easy to identify which ones are transphobes, though, because people towing the party line are just towing the party line.
Yeah.
So it depends whether they're doing it off their own bat in a way they don't have to,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that there is mileage in talking to the Labour MPs who are not transphobic, who are
'cause
very, for
the question I
trans
would ask
rights.
is, this is clearly being done strategically. The stuff in the NHS is not scientific at all. That's a fact. It's unscientific. It was from the start. The fact that increasing numbers of scientific groups are debunking it just adds to the evidence, but it was always unscientific from the start. The general trans thing, attitude since the Supreme Court ruling, it's clearly strategic. It's clearly strategic. There aren't that many genuine transphobes in Labour. There are some. It's not, let's be honest, there are some. But the rest are going along with it because they think it's strategy. And I would say to them, why do you think that? And you cannot say just because people are more transphobic now, because, yes, but it doesn't mean to say they're going to vote for their transphobia. People will vote, like some issues Labour have to go along with, like immigration. To a certain, obviously, even Starmer said they went too far there, but there's a certain amount of anti-immigration rhetoric required because a lot of people will vote on immigration issues because they do think that affects their everyday life. They
Stop
do
issuing
think
visas,
that causes problems. Huh?
Stop issuing visas. The vast
They do
majority
think
of immigration
that-
is
Yeah, of course it is.
requested.
But a lot of it, they think that's the reason they can't get a doctor's appointment, or the classrooms are crowded, or they can't get housing, or they can't get a decent job. So they will vote for that because that's what they think. I have never spoken to anyone or seen any evidence of anyone going, I'm going to vote for squeezing trans rights because I can't have a piss. There's too many trans people in the queue for the toilets. I've never heard anyone say that.
No.
But they won't vote for it.
But there are a
Doesn't
lot of
matter what they
transphobes
believe,
in
they
Labour,
won't vote for
even
it.
in the membership of
There
Labour.
are. Oh yeah,
there
there's
are
no point in pretending they
people
don't
who
exist. They are there.
pretend to be progressive or think of themselves as progressive about everything else, but when it comes to trans rights, they're like, oh no, actually, now I'm actually a massive bigot. But before we go on, SG, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Is Palantir going to be associated with this new app in any way, shape, or form? I don't know.
It will be.
It will be.
It will be. I bet you. I don't know for certain, but I bet you. How can it not? It's got to. They are in charge of the systems, and it is. It's a really good idea. We do need to link up. It's utterly ridiculous. I keep saying, years ago when I was under a GP and in a different trust for some surgery I was having, utterly ridiculous that my GP could not access the tests they were doing and stuff like that. And you can't get it yourself.
Yeah, but it doesn't need to be Palantir who does that. Do you know what I mean?
It actually does because they're
companies.
already doing it. They're already doing it. So to get another company, they'd have to come and start from scratch. And do you know what? You'd get no improvements to the NHS for 10 years.
So this is something the Tories have set up.
Yeah, it's like anyone who's ever been in a workplace, if someone comes in from outside and designs you a whole new bespoke system from scratch, you stop it. It always goes wrong. Where's my pissing
Your
thing?
little gremlins.
It always goes wrong. So obviously Labour are in this bind now because they cannot afford. They've got to get this working before the. We know that 10-year plan, but they've got to have something working for 5 years, right? 4 years now. You wouldn't risk it. You really wouldn't risk it.
Well, that's disappointing.
Just for the sake of someone else.
Chris,
it is, but that's the reality, unfortunately.
Chris C, thank you very much for the super chat. Patients don't want an app; they want to be able to see a GP face to face in a timely manner. Get the basics right first.
A lot of people want an app.
I want an app.
A lot of people do want.
My partner wants an app. Going to the GP, it's a pain in the arse. Like
some people don't even like phones or people. Honestly, I would much prefer it if I could have the, as Streeting puts it, doctor in my pocket. I'd much prefer that and to go to a doctor when I need a physical examination.
Yeah,
I'd prefer that.
Yeah. So, but the option should be there. Like, if you do want to see a doctor,
but the option will be there, and it's more likely to be there with this because it'll free up doctors.
Yeah, because I wouldn't bother going in. Like, it's a waste of my time to go in for something that I just need an opinion on. And if I can get that through the app, then good. Because I'm not going to go to Google if I have a problem. Okay, because Google is
exactly it's
so shit. There's no comeback. Do you know what I mean? I can't. Who do I sue? Right? If I have some ailment and I type into Google, what do I do about this ailment? And it gives me some bloody placebo, witchy bullshit crap, right? And then I try that, and it makes the situation worse. Who do I sue? Whereas if this app tells me to do something, it ends up, I don't know, boiling my head or something, I can sue the NHS. There you go.
And GPs have actually, been trying to improve things anyway. I mean, one time last year or year before or something, I had something on my leg, contacted them, they said, take a photo and send it to me. So this sometimes we'll do some remote stuff. So, but that's individual GP practices doing their own thing there. It needs to be, there needs to be the government putting some resources behind it.
I mean, having Zoom meetings with the doctor during COVID was great. It was great for Kat, I mean, she can't phone up the doctor.
Yeah.
But the way that we have it set up at the moment is I need to talk to the doctor about something really minor. It means going in and actually asking, getting an appointment. So you got the 8 a.m. scramble. Then I've got to stop work, drive to wherever it is or walk or whatever. And then I've got to take time out of my day to do that. And a lot of men in particular, not just men, but a lot of men in particular will look at that and go, it's not really worth seeing the doctor about it. It's probably nothing. Yeah. And that thinking of it's probably nothing kills so many people in this country because it turns out to be something. So if you could say, I have this problem, and they say, okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to send you a thing and you can piss into a cup or something and send that off. And they can send that to your house same day, picked up, taken away, the same logistics as Amazon. I mean, that could all be done. They get your piss tested, and they can go, okay, jobs are good one within X amount of days, and that comes up on your app. You don't have to see the doctor again to explain the test results. It just says, right, okay, it turns out you are fucked up. Come in, come and see me. Which I don't know. There are a lot of things that we could do with tech that we don't do, and it blows my mind. One of the big ones for me is buses. I can't believe that we still don't. We still have buses with a number on and a destination.
It is. And the thing is, though, of course, and the people best positioned to provide these services are dickheads.
What?
Peter Thiel, Elon Musk. That is unfortunately the case. The people who are in the position to be able to provide these services quickly because they've already got the tech. Jeff Bezos, all of these people are arseholes.
They are absolutely.
If you want it, then those are the people that've got the.
Paula, we have another super chat from Paula. Thank you so much. From Sarah Davis, who may not be able to afford this, Phil. Streeting takes advice over trans issues from J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, but why? Ask yourself. And again, I'm not trying to back him up then, but ask yourself, when do you think Wes Streeting became a transphobe all of a sudden? Exactly the same time Labour strategy said we should be transphobic. So, how do you know he is? When it happened at exactly the same time, when he was very supportive of trans rights, same as everyone else, it all happened at exactly the same point in 2023, came a point in 2023 when it clearly was a shift in Labour strategy. So how do you know he's not just towing the party line?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. We don't have to worry about whether he's a transphobe or not, because, as I say, the policy is transphobic. But nonetheless, this has come from their advisors. The advisors who ought to be out on their ear, quite frankly. Do you mean I need to better display Frostmourne? It's literally in a big rock on the floor. Do you know how heavy that is? How do you display a Frostmourne better than that?
Leapshin says, I don't get your meaning about bus destination boards. Please elaborate. They just don't tell you anything. Like, buses are fucking dreadful for being user-friendly. You've got to do research to find out which bus to get. Whereas you turn up at a station and you can see a line on the wall and it tells you all the stops along the way. And it's not train number 18 that you've got to wait for. It literally comes up on the board. Next train is going to be stopping at all these stations on the way to somewhere else. You don't get that with buses. Or if you do, it's done in such a shit way. And it means that, first of all, if you get the bus every day, it's not a problem. But if you are getting the bus irregularly, as a lot of people do, you're going to look at it and go, I can't be arsed with all that. I'm just going to fucking drive. I'm just going to drive. It's less hassle. It costs more to park in town, but I'm just going to drive. And so that, and also the fact that buses drive past, that just blows my mind. We've got a bus stop not far from our house here in Durham. And one time I was walking to the bus stop with the girls. It's not like we live on a fucking main road or something. We live in a village. And the bus had just got to the bus stop. And I put my hand out. And he went, drove on. Because Here's the thing. Buses are not allowed to let people on or off at places that aren't official bus stops. Why not? Minibuses can. Taxi cabs can. They stop wherever the fuck they want. They stop in the middle of a motorway if they want to.
I'm actually going to say as a driver, it won't be much fun if buses just stop wherever the hell they like.
No, but if you call them on an app.
Oh, right, yeah.
You like school buses in America. They go to people's houses. They don't have a load of bus stops that the kids have to go to the bus stop. They stop outside the house. They have a list of kids to pick up each morning, and they get on the bus, and it's a much safer way of getting kids to and from school than letting them get on a public bus or doing the school run, which is dangerous because you just put loads of cars on the road.
Our America, though, I mean, its civil planning was sort of designed in the modern age, so it's a bit easier to do that, isn't it?
Well, I think there's better ways of just doing buses in general. I'd like to see buses on demand. I'd like to see more mini buses rather than big fuck off double deckers where they're not needed. More mini buses more often.
Yeah,
instead
especially
of having
they're definitely
one
not
big
needed
bus every 20 minutes, have 4 mini buses every 5 minutes.
I certainly agree about the double deckers, especially where they're definitely not needed is rammed into low-hanging bridges that because everyone's day.
Yeah.
There's far too much of that goes on.
Well, it does, because there's a lot of low bridges in this country because the infrastructure was built in a time when no one envisaged double-decker buses. Questionable Absanity, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. There were more children in school in 1980 than there are today. The problem is not pupil numbers. Maybe there's another reason for overcrowding. Well, underfunding.
Yeah, but that is a reason. That's a problem in itself. That we don't have as many children these days, and yet we're deciding that we can do without immigrants. It's like, okay, this will be fun.
Yeah. The ultimate solution would be driverless pods. The tech is already in advanced stage. See American.
Yeah, but who's developing that as well?
Yeah, I hate the word pod. It's too close to poo. But yeah, they don't have carriages of their trains. They're actually pods on a train. Because they don't like using the word train for these kind of things. Taxis depend on the types of license they have. Red badge taxis cannot pick up anywhere and must be booked. White badges can pick up anywhere. There you go. Different types of taxis. So why can't we have different types of buses? We have big buses that do the big bus routes that are popular, and then we have mini buses that go everywhere, literally everywhere. So no one is a prisoner in their own home. Yeah, as many people in rural areas in this country are, especially elderly people. Because they might have a free bus pass, can't use it because there's no bus routes.
No bus, yeah.
Because it ain't profitable.
And just in the last few years, the number of rural services was cut by half under the Tories in the last Parliament. Yeah.
Bastards. Right. Okay, so next good thing. We've only done one. It's like half past already.
We've done exactly.
Housing.
I've got a right list. Go on.
Okay, housing.
So we've got. So some things are still technically not law yet, but it's so close to the end it is certain. So we've got the Renters' Rights Bill, which does things like ban no-fault evictions. You've also got better bargaining rights for renters as well. Lots of new protections in there. Huge boost to social housing coming. Social. Basically, there's going to be more affordable housing, but in terms of government funding for more social housing as well. They're going to help with what else have we got? I suppose sort of housing. They did nationalise the accommodation for service personnel. That's actually quite pricey. But there's also a general policy, I think, for veterans supposed to be coming out.
Yeah.
There's going to be improved access for housing for veterans, domestic abuse victims, care leavers in terms of priority for housing. So there are quite a few things on housing, yes.
Before we go on, Third Eye Blind, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. We need radical reform of our politics. We are now on a hiding to nowhere with the current cohort of politicos. The problem is with radical reform, and I'm going to sound like a right centralist dad here, is that if we have radical reform in one direction, whether that's towards the Tories or whether it's towards Labour, or the left or the right, there's always a reaction. There's always a reaction. The reaction to Obama being elected was Trump.
Yeah, but that's in terms of policy. We're talking about a political system here that can suit everyone.
Yeah.
We just need a better. If you have a better political system, you have better politics.
Well, do you though? Do you? I mean,
yeah. What's going to happen potentially at the next election? Like, for example, my 1 o'clock video on this. So He's been a bit quiet about it, but Zara Sultana reckons she's going to form a new party with Jeremy Corbyn. More in Common did some polling on it that said they could get, obviously untested without policy or anything, but they could get instantly 10% of the vote, potentially. It's not impossible if they can get themselves, a platform. So you could have a situation at the next election where you need a stunningly low percentage of the vote to get a majority, and that could be anyone. Could be Labour, could be the Conservatives, could be Reform UK.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't be the Lib Dems because they're competing in enough seats. But
So I have a question. If we went for something like, I was talking about ranked choice voting this morning on my show. So if you went for that, do Labour need to do a referendum like we did last time, or can they just fucking do it?
No, there's no mandate for it, so the House of Lords could just decide to sink it if they wanted. You're supposed to have a public mandate from either a specific referendum or a manifesto promise, and also if you do something that looks like it's not. Labour have got the right idea in terms of their official line, which is that first past the post is rubbish, but it has to come from the people. But what they should be doing is setting up people's assemblies. And they should be doing that with all haste.
Yeah. That was the magic word. It was haste. It triggered your camera's been
Apparently it's hand movements, but I don't know how to tell it to stop. Can't find the button.
While you're doing that, I'll read out a super chat that's come in from V Book 2003 for £10. Thank you so much.
Vibe UK.
Vibuk.
Vibe UK.
Vibuk 2003.
Apparently there was a hell of a vibe in the UK in 2003. That was the Iraq War, for goodness sake.
Hi both. Do you know when they are going to lower the voting age to 16, as they promised at the last election, I believe? That might cause trouble for Refuck, which would be a good thing.
Yes, they have hinted they may introduce it, in fact, later this year. Now, so that it could actually still be in this session of Parliament. So yes, there's a hint, but if it's not this year, it'll be next year. Yeah. I think it'll be next year when it's passed into law.
Okay, so
it won't be a long thing. It won't take ages to get that through.
So 39 billion for affordable social housing over the next decade. First real push on housing since the coalition years. I think they got the final numbers on how many houses the Tories built in the 14 years, and it was something like 400. Like, it was an insanely low number. You're like, you're kidding me? That was it? Yeah. Because they build more houses than the people who vote for them. Their house prices won't increase as much as they are. Supply and demand, obviously. Education.
It has been going down. Education.
Yeah. Education.
There's been a lot on education.
Free school meals.
There's been a few things we can say.
In
fact, actually, you can say that because the breakfast clubs were promised, but what they've also done is boost free school meals to anyone on universal credit. So I don't think they even promised to do that. So that's actually extra. So that's more than they promised.
And school funding's gone up by 0.4% a year, which is a small but real term rise.
It is a real term as well.
Defence spending up to 2.5% of GDP by 2027.
Yeah.
But that's been taken away from foreign assistance.
International,
which isn't great.
Well, we didn't have much in the first place, so.
Yeah. And there's going to be a 7.3% an average annual rise in investment spending for military kit and infrastructure, which is sorely needed because the Tories really.
It is because we prepared for the wrong. Do you remember? It was just 3 years ago?
Boris
Johnson was being asked about our capacity in Europe. And Boris was going, we don't fight wars in Europe.
Nobody fights wars with tanks in Europe.
A matter of weeks later, Russia invaded Europe.
Mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. Okay, next up, transport, which I'm excited about, as we just discussed. 15.6 billion earmarked for city region transport projects between 2027 to 2031. £3 bus fare cap extended till 2027. We've discussed this before. I think it should be £2, but renationalisation of trains franchises are already underway. Yes. Which is good because we want to see some more stuff nationalised. I was thought about because I have these really excellent and interesting conversations about everything being privatised in the UK, and the point was made that actually, do you know what isn't privatised in the UK? The Crown lands.
Oh, Oh, sorry.
75% of the money they
tax.
make from the crown estate
Yeah. Well, this is why I want
goes
land
to our
tax.
government.
I was talking about this in my stream earlier. Land tax. If people want wealth tax, if you tax wealth that can be moved, they'll just move it. So tax wealth that can't be moved, which is land, and then yeah, Charlie will have to pay some tax. I'm not. I'm pro constitutional monarchy, but he can pay his taxes.
Yep,
He's a billionaire.
Yep, he gets 25% of the sovereign of the sorry, not the sovereign grant, the crown lands, the profits they make from the crown lands, which includes the Duchy of Lancaster and the Duchy of Cornwall. Well, in the family, I think he's got the Duchy of Lancaster, and I think Prince William has got the Duchy of Cornwall. £20 super chat from Paula. That's very generous of you, Paula. Thank you so much. Phil, the House of Lords could only delay a bill by a year, not stop it. What are you thinking? What you're thinking of is the
Salisbury Convention.
Salisbury Convention, where the House of Lords should not vote against something in the governing party's manifesto.
You're talking there about using the Parliament Act to ram something through. First of all, it's more than a year. It's the following session of Parliament, so it could easily be a year and a half or 2 years. But either way, it would be considered a very bad show to ram something through the House of Lords for which there is no public mandate.
Bad show, chap.
There's no need. Do you know what?
Tories ever did was a bad show.
Yeah, I don't see why anyone would want to try and ram it through with that. Like, what's people's problem with having a public mandate for electoral reform? Surely, of all the reforms you want, that should be the one that is led by people. You just have people's assemblies. Have people's assemblies, get a load of people. We've done them before. Get them to come up with a system. Put it on a referendum. Say to people, do you want this or do you want to keep this?
So
literally, the wording I would put. This is the wording I would do. Right? Oh, Jesus. Do you want to vote? You let them vote. You've got two options. The first option is to vote for modernisation according to these things, and the second option, vote for the current shit show. I'd literally word it like that.
Yeah.
Vote. Your two boxes are modernisation and shit show. Actually, the Electoral Commission may not like it, but that's what I would do. That's what I would put on the referendum ballot. There'd obviously been an accompanying leaflet to tell you about the options properly, but I would have the two options: modernisation and shit show.
How do these assemblies work? What do they look like?
So what you do is you get a cross section of people involved. And you get experts to talk to them about various things, and then they discuss things, and other people take their feedback, and you just do that. It represents a cross section of society. They'll take place all over the country, everyone involved, and they literally are just given something that media never gives them: expert information. They can talk to experts on various things, ask their questions. And it's their job to come up with, so what would you accept? And then you roll it out across the country in the form of a referendum in this particular case.
Fair enough, sorry. Okay, so let's move on, right? Foreign policy is the last one I want to talk about. Reset with the EU, which is fabulous for me. Doesn't go far enough, but we're getting there. His reset speech was well received in Brussels. We now have... up to this point, we were only going to meet up with Europe every 5 years to talk about trade. Now that's going to happen every year.
Yes.
So that facilitates our movement back into a customs union and back towards a single market. We've already seen the alignment of regulations for exports, which really, really helps our exports market. The Tories wasted millions of pounds on facilities to check stuff that didn't need to be checked. And also, we no longer have to have separate veterinary certificates for any export, any live, but meat exports.
Or any agri-food.
Any agri-food exports, we needed a veterinary certificate, or we needed a botanist certificate, whatever the fuck you need. And we don't need them anymore. So as long as the facility is up to EU standards, that stuff that coming out of that facility can be sold anywhere in Europe. Awesome. So that's good. Support for Ukraine has been maintained, and we've been seen as kind of like a stable international presence again, rather than a bunch of bloody clown cars on fire going off a cliff.
Well, the other thing as well on that front, in terms of supporting Ukraine, something that people give stick for It's like, oh, why is he kissing up to Trump? Well, he's kissing up to Trump. First of all, it's in our national interest and it costs nothing. It's not like anyone else's lips having to get chapped. But it's also helping support Ukraine. I mean, what was, when we had that blow up in the Oval Office, when all the European leaders were like trying to support Zelensky, people go, well, what's Starmer saying? Starmer was on the pissing phone to Trump and Zelensky trying to get them back in the room. And even afterwards, he is the one who, along with Macron, particularly, there's others as well who've been helping out, but Starmer and Macron have really been the ones really trying to get Trump and Zelensky together quite a few times.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they still can't persuade Trump to just apply pissing sanctions to Russia, because the Republicans are up for that, the proper Republicans. Matt Graham's up for that, but Trump's still going, oh, I'm not convinced it's going to help.
Shout out to Rob in the chat. Welcome. You're now in Lone Star. You are awesome. Not this way. You are awesome. So thanks for that. Got a couple of questions coming in. Phil, this is from Amy Walker. Phil, land tax has never been implemented successfully anywhere. What specific hurdles do you think could have scuppered past attempts?
Because, generally speaking, countries are set up to tax income, not wealth. And you'll have the same problem if you ever try and tax any form of wealth. You would actually have massive legal challenges. It would be a very tricky process to do it, which is why it takes a lot of years. But that's ultimately why. You may also have problems with vested interests. You really need to ignore them. Land can't be moved. And you can't argue then it might frighten investors off, because if investors want to use the land usefully, then you can offer them very low rates. You can literally have a system where if it generates per, whatever acre or whatever, if it generates a certain amount of tax, then you get a discount, can even be as low as 0% if it's really beneficial. So if you want to build a factory and it's going to employ 1,000 people, then it's like, you can basically have that for nothing.
Yeah, brilliant. Paul is saying not bad show at all. An unelected house deciding matters of democracy is the bad show. It's just fair enough.
Well, and that is something that is one of Starmer's big thing. When people say we don't really know what Starmerism is, it's like, that's a fair point. It's not really communicating stuff. But one of the big things he personally wants is getting rid of the unelected House of Lords. The reason he's not doing it this Parliament is because he got a massive amount of resistance from within Labour.
Chris C saying free school meals, they've always been available to families on income-based welfare entitlements. Not sure how Phil can say Labour have extended them to all universal credit
because they weren't.
I didn't think they were. No. Okay, so what went wrong? Number one, comms and narrative.
The big things that gone right. Well, we're coming back to things that have gone right because you barely scratched the surface, mate.
Oh, go on then. You tell us the rest of the stuff that's gone right. Before we go on.
Okay. Well, let's just go down the workers' rights thing. This could take an hour.
No.
So first of all, I'll do it quickly then. So first of all, as soon as the Employment Rights Bill is passed, there are three things that come into place immediately. Well, two of them are absences of things. So the Strikes Minimum Service Levels Act 2023, which was the one that they did to try and make it almost impossible for public services to go on strike, that's going to be instantly repealed, gone. The majority of the Trade Union Act 2016, one of the most egregious parts of that is it means for some public sector workers, they might need as much as 80% of them to vote for strike action to be able to strike. So that'll be gone. And there's also going to be protections for workers so they don't get sacked for going on authorised strike action. In terms of other things that will be then coming, because for the rest of it, it'll be coming online in 2026/2027, because obviously businesses need time to update their policies and train staff and stuff like that and get it all ready. But certainly well before the election, there's going to be redundancy protections doubling. So, if you've got mass redundancies, it'll cost a business a lot more. Basically the workers will get more money out of it. Day one paternity leave and unpaid parental leave. You've got more protections for whistleblowers. They're setting up a Fair Work agency to try and promote workers' rights in general. Statutory sick pay. So at the moment, there's a lower earnings limit on it, and there's a waiting period for it. That's going. They're also going to make it easier for trade unions to be recognised in the workplace, to be able to force their workplace to recognise them. Fire and rehire going. There's the adult social care negotiating. There's going to be like a fair pay agreement for that. Tipping laws, you've got to be able to consult your workers about your tipping policies. Employers will be forced by law to take all reasonable steps to prevent sexual harassment. There's going to be an obligation on employers not to permit harassment of their employees by third parties. It's going to be a gender pay.
Something that's going to come up in the future. That's not here now, is it? Because you've also got the duty of candour, which is the Hillsborough law. That hasn't actually come into effect yet, is it?
Well, it hasn't been presented to Parliament yet. That's the problem with it. But no, it's like, this is specifically about stopping your employees being attacked by others. Like could be customers or something like that, for example. So you've got a duty to protect them just in general.
We've got Rob Wales in the chat here. Reform lose a Ben Fieldshire by-election in Durham, gained by the Lib Dems. Let's hope it's a sign of things to come. I think it is, and one of the good things that we can do with these fucking councils that we are taking over is just show how absolutely incompetent they are as often as possible, so people can point to it and go, oh, if they're this bad at local governments, imagine what they'll be like in national governments. Brad W, thank you very much. Labour comms are so dire they could actually improve them by hiring Prince Andrew.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, Phil, interrupted. Go on.
Where was we up to? So one interesting one. Employers are going to have to produce action plans for tackling the gender pay gap, and they need menopause action plans. They're going to be encouraged to introduce those from April 2026, but it'll be by law April 2027.
Was it Kemi Badenoch who said that going through menopause was a bit like being ginger?
It probably was. I don't remember that specifically, but it's the sort of thing she would say, isn't it?
Like, that's like taking time off for being ginger. And I'm like, I'm sure
she's not even gone through the menopause yet. Actually, how would she know? She's not that old, is she?
I'm sure, like having hot flushes and having headaches all the time has got nothing to do with being ginger. I think that's maybe
the other thing as well. My wife's noticed this. It's actually a good thing. It's beneficial in her case. So she started taking HRT recently, and she was talking to her mates, and they basically say, apparently with this thing, it makes you a bit more bolshy because it's the estrogen apparently that makes women a bit more like diplomatic. So my wife at work now is speaking her mind a bit more, and I keep saying it's a fucking good thing, should have done it years ago. But apparently that's related to the HRT. But the point I'm making is, when women go through the menopause, there are changes, and you don't want to be like attacking them just because there is some little small change in their personality. So employers should make sure they're aware of things like this.
Yeah. By the way, while people are watching this, something I only discovered yesterday, and I told Kat, and she's like, yeah, I know about that. Well, essentially, a lot of HR departments aren't aware that if you have a disability and you take time off to go for therapy or a checkup or, go and see the optometrist or whoever, if it's not to be taken out of your sick time off. It is separate to that, and it's under reasonable adjustments under the 2010 Equality Act. So they shouldn't be able to dock you your pay, effectively. They're not allowed to take it off your sick time that you're allowed off. So yes, some of us breeze through the menopause, others suffer hugely. There were 2 reasons to suffer from gingerness: sunburn and bigotry, says Anne Phillips. Honestly, I think that of all the discriminated against groups in society, I think gingers have done all right, despite being, picked on in school a little bit more than everybody else, maybe.
Have we ever had a ginger prime minister there?
Yes, we have. Winston Churchill.
Have we?
He was a ginger when he was a kid.
I suppose he was, I guess. Yeah, I guess he was.
The best one, apparently, according to the people of Britain. Anyway, let's move on and not mention Gallipoli. Okay.
I voted for Elizabeth I. She was ginger, wasn't she?
She was a ginge. She was, yeah. And that's why she didn't have sex. The Virgin Queen.
She wasn't allowed. Yeah,
no, it's because she was ginger. So, okay, can we talk about what went wrong, or you still want to go about what went right?
No, there are more, but it's okay. You carry on.
No,
I
come on.
think they did
What else
five
have you
things
got? What
wrong.
else have you got? Because
Well, I mean, there's okay. There's more of the whatchamacallit. I mean, people can read for themselves that, but you've also got like boost to green energy. So we've got in terms of GB energy. I mean, first of all, there's nationalisation. So we're going to get some publicly owned energy being produced. They've already nationalised part of the national grid related to provided supply of that. In terms of other environmental issues, water companies, it is now illegal for water companies to, well, I'll put it this way. Water company executives are now under a legal duty not to allow their water companies to illegally dump. If they do so, they are personally liable. And if they try to conceal it from the authorities, then they can go to prison. The Secretary of State, Steve Reed at the moment, has the power, which he has been using, to block bonuses if they're not doing well enough on their plans. And they now, by law, and they've already started doing this because the law was passed before this tax year, so every year they have to produce an action plan on tackling sewage dumping, right? They've got to make sure they're monitoring them. The monitoring will not be done by themselves. They don't get to mark their own homework anymore. There will be independent oversight over the monitoring as well. So they have to put the monitoring back in that Liz Truss told them they could take away when she was DEFRA secretary, that under David Cameron. And it will be independently monitored. They don't do their own stuff. So, there's plenty of things in there. They've boosted pay rates are now, after God knows how many years of going down in real terms, are actually going up in real terms. You've got pensions tended to be boosted by more than inflation anyway, but you've also had minimum wage boosted by, and another thing they're going to do is they're going to get rid of the age brackets for them, although that hasn't happened yet, but they have significantly boosted the minimum wage, as well as public sector pay, which had also fallen behind. So I could come up with 100 things they've done.
you should make a video. All the things Labour have done. And
Well, I've done a video for tomorrow, but
and tell you.
Yeah, if I'd had more time to do it, I might have done it better. But I've got one coming out tomorrow.
Okay, cool. All right, let's talk about what went wrong. Can we?
I think 5 things.
5 things that went wrong.
If you're going to mention the comms, I'm going to say that's...
Comms.
So it depends what you mean, Labour Party or Labour government, because that's not a Labour government. It's going to cause them problems.
Like your camera.
But that's a party issue. Yeah, it is massive problems. It's my own fault for getting something that's fancier than I needed.
It'd be really funny if you had something really embarrassing on one side of the screen there and it kept going to it. It's like the fallen Madonna with the big boobies or something.
Exactly.
You're like, look at that!
Fortunately, it's just a curtain. So the...
Before we go on about comms, Paula's dropped a super chat in. Thank you so much, Paula. That's really kind of you. You're number one, Paula. Ever read Churchill's letters to his parents at school? They are absolutely heartbreaking. No, but I could imagine he went to a very posh school, didn't he? And they weren't very nice to people in those schools.
No, this is the thing. It's basically child abuse. Yeah. People like Boris Johnson are, they're child abuse victims.
Yes.
That's why they are as they are.
Yeah. Those who to evil is done will do evil in turn. Well, sometimes. Okay, listen. Right, let's talk about comms. I think it's a problem with the government. I think this is a huge problem with the government. We were talking about this morning about the way that Claudia Sheinbaum in Mexico does a press conference every day. And this is something that the Labour government could be doing, and they're not. And I don't understand why they don't do it.
Nor do I, because they're idiots. I know it's an easy thing to say when a politician does something you don't like, but I actually think at this point it is gross stupidity. When they see, the thing is, what they'll be doing, I'll bet you anything, they're chuntering going there. Because this week, right, what's happened this week? So we had the massive U-turn, right? Okay, that was always going to be news. They can't complain about that. But this week they have announced their roadmap to the employment rights bill that I've just sort of gone through some of. And then there's the 10-year NHS plan. Now, I bet you a year ago, they'll have been because they'll have known what sort of timescale these things. They knew, they were already planning their first anniversary where they were going to be talking about these things. they'll have been thinking, oh, this is the point. They were thinking the first year we're setting the foundations right, we're getting everything sorted, and then in the second year we're going to be leading in with all this good news, all the optimism on the NHS and on housing and on workers' rights. It's going to be absolutely marvellous. And this week they're probably thinking, like on the newspapers yesterday, what was it? It was every single front newspaper was Rachel Reeves with a bit teary. It's like, pissing hell, we've got the NHS plan out today. So they know that there's messages they want to get out and they can't get out. And it's stupidity to blame the media for that. You can't blame the media. The media are as they are, right?
Yeah.
Because I did videos on both of those two things this week and they didn't get very many views. Do you know what? It's not clickbaity. So of course the media not even just the Tory media, any media is not going to promote that stuff because it's not sexy enough. So they need to do it. They need to do it themselves. So at this point, it is actual stupidity that they do not realise this.
They've failed to sell their achievements. You're doing more for Labour, and you're not even a member anymore, are you? You're doing more for Labour, telling people what their achievements are, than their entire comms departments are at the moment. Yeah. Also, they have allowed Farage, and to a lesser extent Badenoch, but mostly Farage, to define the national conversation. Yeah. Last year, it was the riots in the summer. They were the Farage riots. He's been going on about migration and people coming over in boats. He's the one who's been saying, because he's a populist, so he'll say, oh, well, they should do something about the Winter Fuel Allowance. They should do something about this. And when they do, he goes, that was because I said something, when it absolutely wasn't.
They should, to do with him. It should be really clear. There are things that Labour are doing, good stuff that Labour are doing, that Farage does not want to talk about. Those are the things they should talk about. Yeah. It's like in sport, do the opposite of what your opponent wants you to do. Yeah. Right? And that's it. It's really that simple. Do not talk about anything. If you talk about immigration, right? If you talk about immigration, what are journalists going to do? They're going to go straight round to Nigel Farage for his opinion, because of course they are. That's his thing. Don't talk about his thing.
No, but do talk about his thing. Oh. Brexit, because it's a massive failure. So every time, because at the moment now, the Labour Party for the last year have blamed everything that's gone wrong on the fact that there were 14 years of Tory chaos, right? There is no point. The Tories are dead, okay? Okay, stop. He's already dead. Yes. There's no point. There's no point. Go after Farage. Farage is a real threat. Go after him. Make sure that every time someone asks you why there's shit in the water, why the trains aren't running on time, why there's no money for anything, you say, it's because of Nigel Farage's disastrous Brexit.
That actually won't work.
Put that into every sentence. What, like Crooked Hillary didn't work or Sleepy Joe? Just keep saying it.
But people don't like crooked politicians and they don't like presidents falling asleep. But they don't necessarily see the damage of Brexit, and a lot of key voters.
No one mentions it.
No, a lot of key voters won't believe. Labour doing it on themselves against the whole media won't work. Do it on things that have. There's lots of things that even Reform UK voters find popular that they need to know Labour are doing and Farage won't. Stuff on net zero. Actually, Reform UK voters by and large are in favour of net zero.
Yes. But Farage doesn't want to talk about Brexit.
No,
he wants to talk about migration. Make him talk about Brexit, because it is a failure.
No. But it is also something that divides Labour voters. Talk about something that unites Labour voters and divides Reform voters. Simple strategy.
Like
just climate change, like net zero. That splits Reform UK. Workers' rights splits. In fact, most are in favour of the workers' rights. Social housing, all the things that Farage voted against. All of the things that Farage voted against. All of these things that are popular, that's what Labour should be leading on. And they can do it every single day. It don't matter that they sound like a broken record. Pissing hell, Starmer's got form for that with his dad being a tool maker, right?
He did. He made a massive tool. Keir Starmer.
Yes. He's slimmed down anyway. He's not that.
I've got to be nice about Labour now. My application for going to the conference is hanging in balance. So, yeah, they're great.
They're just talk about those things. You could say like 5 days. You're gonna Monday can be. We're going to talk about net zero again. And you can do lots of things in it. Like with the heat waves, they could have done some public service stuff. Like, okay, well, these are some good ways to help you keep warm. because we need to do this now because of like Nigel Farage's climate change nonsense. You know, next day you can talk about workers' rights. So these are, you know, you can pick what, like they've put themselves a list of 22 new rights coming online, and some of them they've lumped together. So there's actually more than 22 new rights. So they could just have every Tuesday for the next half a year, just talking about why they're legislating for this new right and why Nigel Farage voted against it. You could do a press conference every single day, just picking one element of something they're legislating for or have legislated for. This is why we did this, and this is why Nigel Farage hates it. Every single day, just get the media in and just do that.
Multi-millionaire elite.
Just do that. Yeah, exactly.
Third Eye Blind. Sorry, Third Eye Blind. Thank you very much for the £5 super chat. They need a Malcolm Tucker to bollock them all into actually making an effort to win the public over. Couldn't agree more.
But they need a Malcolm Tucker that knows what they're doing.
Yes. Malcolm Tucker knew what he was doing.
Yes, but the current one doesn't. Morgan McSweeney is apparently a bit of a Malcolm Tucker type, but it's not working well.
You know it's fantasy because he ended up going to jail in the end. Ooh, spoilers. Ori, thank you very much for the £2 super chat. Nothing to add, just pushing you over the goal. Thank you, Ori. We are now hit the goal. Hope you enjoyed your confetti. If you got confetti on your screen, I don't know. Graham's going to have to join the persona. Is going to be persona non grata to the party very soon. Says Third Eye Blind. Maybe. Snowy Cat says I replied to Phil's response on my comment on his morning video. Why didn't they do good things first rather than pissing off their core voters?
Because you have to pay for it. Oh, okay. In terms of pissing off the core voters, it depends what you mean. So the trans stance doesn't pay for anything. They didn't need to do that. The Winter Fuel Allowance was stupid. The disability cuts were stupid. So they shouldn't have done any of those things. But in terms of why couldn't they front load with popular stuff, two reasons. First of all, the public will by and large judge you based on how things are at the time of the election. So you actually want to peak during the election season. But the other reason is you have to pay for it first, and paying for it's unpopular. So there is a sense in which the general strategy of, we're probably not going to be winning many friends in the first year was true. But what they should have done, instead of being pessimistic about the economy. Do you remember last autumn? They kept going, the economy, it's absolute shithole. It's absolute shithole. We don't really know what it is. It's absolute mess. What's a mess they left in? £22 billion black hole, blah, 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 blah. Instead, what they should have been saying is, thank God that's done with. We can now look forward to a brighter future. Every single day, they should have been talking of a brighter future. If the media, do you know how Starmer, because he's using their lines now, whenever the Badenoch chimes up, he says, she just talks down the country. She just, like Boris Johnson used to do with Labour. Yeah. They're just talking down the country. Starmer uses that line now on the
It's good. It's effective. I'm glad he uses that.
Use it on everyone. Every day, he should have been, right from the start, talking. Obviously, he couldn't do this during the riots, but afterwards, he could have talked up all the positive stuff that was coming. It doesn't matter that it's not happening the next day. Just talk about it. Keep people focused on it every single day. If the media had a pop at him,
Green Revolution.
Why are you talking the country down?
Leading the world in green fuel. That's what we can do. Green innovation.
Like this 10-year NHS plan. Now, it's very ambitious. We might not be able to get it all. Maybe it'll be a bit too much. But what he should be doing is being so relentlessly optimistic about it and this massive vision that if any journalist says, what about this, what about this? And he could just lean into a little bit of the populist tactics and just say, why are you talking the country down? Why don't you believe we can do this? Why don't you believe we can do this? That's what I would do. It's not difficult either. It's like dealing with the media. People make out that dealing with the media is really difficult. It's really pissing easy because all the media, they ask stupid questions. They ask the stupidest questions. So easy. And you can do, that's why Boris Johnson was so successful, because it's not, you don't need to be clever. It's paint by numbers. You literally you come out with the line you want to deliver. And if someone criticises it, why are you talking the country down? It's like simple.
Yeah. Why are you talking the country down? And sorry for the buffering. Sorry. Apologies for the buffering there. But I think you had finished, so that's okay. For a lot of people looking at Labour at the moment, there is a lack of clear vision. And you're right, you can list some of the achievements of Labour. Absolutely, you can do that. But at the same time, it just has this sort of managerial vibe to it. It's not really...
They're not communicating the vision.
Yes.
And the thing is, And some of it is easy to fix. Some of it is actually easy to fix.
Winter Fuel Allowance fiasco, didn't need to do that. The welfare reform climb down. The way they went about that is unheard of in parliamentary history of a government putting together a bill and then having to change the name of the fucking bill because they'd taken out the section that referred to the title of the bill. I mean, oh my God.
It was a mess.
It was an absolute mess.
It's because previous governments would have just pulled the vote.
Yes. That's what they should have done. Like, what?
They'd have pulled it and had it 2 weeks later.
Or not gone for the vote in the first place and actually sat down with the MPs and said, right, what can we put together that will keep the most people in here happy? Because so many of those MPs, the 120 odd that said, we are not backing this, we're not going to vote for this. So many of them have been saying it for months. It's not like it was a last minute, like, haha, gotcha.
There is sort of an element of that. A few months ago, it was only about 50. There should have been 120 at the time. I said at the time. I said months ago, if 100 MPs said this would be changed immediately. The problem is, there's too many people, too many MPs that just had too much faith, and it's like forgetting that it is actually their job. So I'm not, you shouldn't try and derail everything the government does, but something like this, they should have been on it earlier on. If there'd have been this sort of opposition to it 3 months ago, we wouldn't have got to this point. But it's still the leadership's fault.
Yeah, and there's
because
a litany
they should have known. It never should have needed opposing, because any political advisor worth their salt would have taken one look at it and gone, you can't do that.
Yeah, but this is part of a litany of bad decisions that Labour have taken. Someone just pointed out in the chat there about Snowy Cat, it is, declaring Palestine Action as a terrorist group. Like, that blows my mind, Phil. What the... That not only makes any protest group that does a bit of vandalism, like a bit of vandalism, the level of terrorists, and then it brings down the level of terrorists. So you're basically a protest.
I'm going to disagree with that one. First of all, it's not a bit of vandalism. They've taken out tens of millions of pounds worth of national security equipment. I'm going to say a country has an absolute right to defend its military equipment. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they should be prescribed. But I am going to say, if you look at the legislation, what they've done does allow for it. We'll see what the court says, because the two key issues here, because you're probably thinking like I do of terrorism being violence or threats of violence for the purpose of political change. You think, well, they haven't been violent. Yes. However, in terms of the legal definition, serious criminal damage does count. So it will then be for the courts to decide effectively, first of all, does it classify as serious criminal damage? I'm going to say taking out military jets might count as that, but I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. Secondly, is the prescription proportionate? So for that, Labour, I suppose, would have to argue that these people have been doing this for a very long time. We can think of no other way of stopping them carrying on doing it other than making them illegal. Again, you may be able to argue that in court.
Yeah, I think that
I'm going to say, I'm just going to say this. I'm going to say, if you are going to cause serious damage to military assets, you do not get to complain if the government says, actually, we're going to stop you doing that. I'm sorry, you don't get to complain.
I think that...
Not a peaceful protest.
There are mechanisms for doing that. They should had the book thrown at them. But to prescribe their organisation as a terrorist group, I think devalues the use of the word terrorists. Well, it's like, anyone's a terrorist these days. You'll have people on the right saying, you can't say anything now without being called a terrorist.
No, my only issue with that is they didn't call the initial rioters last year terrorists, because they were. The ones who joined in later, they were just pissheads. But the ones who started it were terrorists because they were using violence in order to affect political change or to attempt political change. So that was my issue there. It's the double standards. The rioters last year should have been, the Farage rioters should have been called terrorists.
Yeah, and they weren't. And they were actually going out and, attacking people. In fact,
the only reason they weren't prosecuted under terrorism laws was simply because the government and prosecutors wanted people put in jail quickly so they could stop the riots. And it's much easier to prove rioting offences than terrorist offences, even though, had it been a process where prosecutors could have had more time, some of them would actually have been prosecuted, I think, under terrorism laws. They were terrorists.
Richard's Grumpy Git saying, sorry, Graham, but breaking into a military base and causing damage when we've had recent Russian intrusion into our airspace is daft and just asking for the full force of the law. Yeah, absolutely. Throw the book at them.
But they have done, and they've still done it again.
What?
Unless you're talking about putting them in prison. They've gone to prison already. They've already done it. This isn't a new thing. They've been doing this for a long time. They've been getting prosecuted and convicted. Yes. They've been doing it for a long time.
Lock them up long enough for them to not get out and do it.
Okay, so now you're saying that they should be, but that's interfering with the judiciary. The government can't tell judges to lock someone away for life.
Fair enough, but like the idea
like, what would the government do?
The people who set fire to a hotel with women and children in
they have
last summer are not terrorists, but the people who broke into Harriet Norton and spray painted the plane are terrorists. Come on.
Who destroyed tens of millions of pounds worth of engine because it wasn't usable. But nonetheless, your problem there, surely, is that the ones last year who attempted murder for the sake of political change were not called terrorists. The problem there is they should have been called terrorists. They should have been called terrorists by the government and the media.
But they weren't.
No, they weren't, but they should have been. They should have been.
But
if they were,
Snowy Cat in the chat is saying there's no such thing as violence against property.
No, but no, you misheard me then. What I said is the general understanding of terrorism is violence to achieve political aims, or the threat of violence, it can include, but the law says that criminal damage also counts. And this is a legal process, so you have to use the legal definition. The legal definition says serious criminal damage for the purposes of political change is terrorism. That is the legal definition.
Okay. If they got done for treason, I would understand that a bit more.
Yeah, but it's not, because they're not trying to bring down the government.
Well, attacking the armed services, surely
no,
that's treason.
No, that's national security. Treason isn't about destroying a country. It's about destroying specifically the government of that country.
Okay. All right. Well, we need some legal.
Well, we're going to get one. There's going to be a court hearing.
Yes, we will, and they'll probably get away with it because they'll say, "Well, this is not terrorism. This is ridiculous. It's going too far."
Well, we will see.
So they probably should, if they want to.
But I'm going to say, I've got no sympathy with people who destroy property. If you destroy property, you have to, and sometimes, like you had something like the Colson statue in Bristol, wasn't it? Now they were prosecuted and they were acquitted by a jury of their peers because what they did was in line with what people would want them to do. But nonetheless, they still risked being convicted for that. And I would just say that if you are going to, commit crime, don't complain, don't come whining, don't whine when there are consequences. Peaceful protest, where if you're just standing there because why do people damage things? Because they don't have enough numbers who agree with them and protest with them. That's ultimately it. Now, there have been some violent protests in time where we've said, well, they had the right cause. Suffragettes, for example. Not all of them were terrorists, but, we agreed with the cause.
Terrorists for the shit they did.
Yeah, but the point is that, some people will agree and some people will disagree. You don't get to use, I don't think you should get to destroy things because that is you saying that I'm right and it doesn't matter. Because if everyone else agreed with you, you wouldn't need to do these things. You just have massive protests, right? In fact, you just persuade everyone to vote for a different way or something. But they haven't got that many people on their side. So what do? They, like any bully, they just do something else. Well, they attack something.
I'm not disagreeing that they broke the law. I'm saying they should be done for trespass, for treason,
but that hasn't stopped it.
Violence,
that hasn't stopped them doing it.
Vandalism. But
what should the government do? What should the government do to protect our national security?
We need to have some kind of position between protest, legal protest, illegal protest,
I don't think
and then terrorism. Because I think the gap between protest and terrorism,
okay, but what should the government do?
Being muddied in this way is not helpful.
But what should the government do?
The government should say, in case this happens again, we are going to make sure that if it ever happens again, you will be charged under this new arson in the Royal Dockyard style.
So your argument is to introduce a new piece of legislation that people will regard as anti-protest legislation. Yes, because that's what it will happen. So great.
We've already got the anti-protest legislation on the books. But this is going beyond.
No, that's been removed.
Have they taken their way?
No, but part of it was ruled unlawful. Well,
Right.
it was ruled unlawful by the High Court. There was going to
Yeah.
be an appeal in the Supreme Court, but the government have now dropped that appeal. So
Yeah.
part of that act no longer exists. You can't actually arrest people for genuinely peaceful protest. Like you can't arrest someone for holding a sign up, going down with this sort of thing.
Yeah. Grimfang is saying pretty sure damage against property under definition would be violence in its use of physical force to inflict damage.
It makes a difference, as I say.
Property damage affects its owner, but then Third Eye Blind is saying, well, it wasn't even the RAF's plane; it was rented from a hedge fund.
So RAF's plane.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll find agreement on this, but I just do not think that they should be prescribed as a terrorist group because it dilutes the.
I don't know. I'm neutral on it, but what I do think is the government has the right to protect its national assets. I think it's ridiculous that two people on a moped and a bucket of paint can just waltz into an airbase. So I think we should have more. But at the same time, that would cost the old Reddies, wouldn't it? Who's going to pay for
roll
that?
Over that one.
But at the same time, yeah, the fact that we have such piss poor security. Because I'll tell you something. There's an RAF, or a disused RAF base near me. It's the one that attracted all the gammons a couple of years ago. And that's locked up tight. You're not getting in there with a moped, I'll tell you that much. And that's a disused base. So I don't know how a used base was so easy to get into. But nonetheless, the government are in the position they're in. They've inherited this piss poor lax security, and what do? They've got to protect their assets. This is, if the court says that this is disproportionate, fine. That's the legal position. But if the court says, no, the government are able to do this, then they've only got themselves to blame. They can stop whining.
Well, stopping us whining, we've got Third Eye Blind here with £5 super chat. Thank you. Phil is asking what the government should do. Maybe not provide material support to a genocide.
We're not doing.
This would not be an
issue.
We're not
doing. We're not.
Well, can we talk about this? Because Starmer's response to the Gaza war, muted, muddled.
Yeah, of course it is. That's diplomacy. That's the way of the world. That is the way of the world. If there was your first duty of government is to protect your own nation. In the event of a world war, we're on the side of America. It's really that simple. We're not joining China. So diplomacy means, we can't explicitly attack what the Palestinians are doing in Gaza as much as we can Russia, right? It's really simple geopolitics. However, Labour have banned the export of all equipment that was being used by the IDF or believed to be used by the IDF in Gaza, right? And people go, oh no, but they didn't really. Yes, they did. A court has just verified that as well. UK government lawyers are specifically arguing that Israel should be charged in the ICJ with crimes against humanity. So our own lawyers are arguing in international courts that Israel is breaking human rights laws. We are trying to get aid into Gaza very heavily. There's nothing else we can do. And whenever anyone comes up with something that the government can do different, there's nothing else. Literally nothing else we can do.
Yeah. We've got the U-turns to talk about. We mentioned them, actually. Spending cuts. So, environment being cut by 2.7%, transport by 5%, home office by 1.7%, and the foreign office by 6.8%. Efficiency savings targets of 13.8 billion by 2029. It's echoes of Osborne era bloody austerity, isn't it?
No. Because the overall spending is going up. So what Labour have done, because we've had 14 years of zero investment, remember, even after the banking crisis, Labour still carried on investing. Investment was still carrying on in public services. That stopped from 2010, completely stopped dead. I can't think of anything where there's been any net investment. I literally cannot think of anything, any public service that continued to even be maintained, let alone improved from 2010. So there's been a 14-year complete desert of investment, certainly public investment. So what Labour have thought to themselves is they're now massively limited in what they can borrow because Liz Truss has put paid to that. If we didn't have Liz Truss and we hadn't had the OBR, she probably could have got away with borrowing more for capital investment because you get a return from that. As long as she can persuade people, we're going to get a return from this. The problem is that the past government didn't get a return from their investments because they were wasting their investments. So she's limited in what she can borrow. So in order to get the investment we need, what they've done, whether it's wise is another matter because it obviously causes frictions, they've tried to squeeze day-to-day spending, but overall spending is still up. It's just that they're shifting some day-to-day spending into infrastructure spending. And they're thinking, because they'll have thought to themselves, we should be in power for 10 years here, right? So they've thought to themselves, right, well, we can squeeze the balls a bit in the first couple of years, and then we should be able to get the results of that. And then after the 10 years, when we'll have a tougher time fighting the election, all of this stuff will be online. It'll be really marvellous, and we can use that to springboard to another election win. It's gone a little bit wrong. Chris, they're saying, where's this investment? We've seen this investment in housing. We've seen it in the NHS. The NHS has been literally given an extra £52 billion just for these community centres. We've seen it in clean energy. We're seeing it in transport as well. It's just that they've shifted some of which is a good idea, some of the local transport issues to those regions instead.
Well, one Angry Pagan saying that environment spending overall going down, but it's being more effectively spent, which doesn't surprise me. I mean, the Tory lot were really, really bad at
every spending decision on the part of the Tories. There was two types of spending decision. One is the sort that every political party has to think of, buying votes basically, and Labour should lean into that. I mean, I've talked about this NHS plan, and I said, I think yesterday, that okay, they can't get these community centres to spring up overnight everywhere. They won't all be in place by the next election. But make sure that your pilots, the ones that you push first, are in some of those key red wall areas. Because those will be the places that will notice them, they need them, they will see them, and they will appreciate them, stick them there.
It's one of the...
That's the first. And then the second one, so when the Tories look at a spending plan, if it's not pork barrel spending, if it doesn't win them votes, their next question is, how can I make my mates or wife rich out of this? That's it. They don't have any other spending priorities.
No, that's true. Okay, let's talk about taxes then. So we've got the autumn budget looming. We've got this £5 billion black hole now to fill. Council tax. Now, if this rises, as it looks like it might, that is not just politically risky. That is like a really regressive tax, because you have areas of this country, like if you walk from Victoria Station to Buckingham Palace, that area there has some of the most expensive houses in the country. It also pays the lowest rate of council tax. So you have millionaires paying pennies. Meanwhile, people living in deprived areas paying some of the highest rates of council tax. And if that goes up by 5%, people are going to notice.
I mean, the thing is, the thing, it does keep going up anyway. Council tax, it's not like council tax has been frozen in time and is now going up. It goes up all the time. It was going to go up more under the Tories because they have tried to shift more of local council expenditure to council tax and away from government grants, central government grants, right? So they can pay for their tax costs. So there's nothing new about this policy, but the general disparity in the system, I wouldn't mind seeing addressed.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the fact that they're going to go up, things cost more, they're going to need to go up, right? They go up all the time. Council tax goes up quite every few years, doesn't it?
National insurance and VAT are pledged to stay the same. That kind of narrows the room for manoeuvre. And if you want to bring in a land tax, Phil, it'll take years to work that out.
It will take years. Oh, no. I think you can't do that to fix this gap. And I've said from the start, I would want to see the government working on land tax, but I also recognise it would take years.
What about windfall taxes? What about windfall taxes making them
So they
permanent?
already increased those. Yeah, they also... Well... you can't. They technically are permanent, but the thing is, it won't always be a windfall, will it? There comes a point where it's just their profits. But they are. They've actually increased those. To be honest, I don't see why they shouldn't increase them to 100% really, because it's a windfall. But they obviously haven't. But they have increased it, higher now. In terms of how you deal with this, there are various ways to deal with it. I still would have liked to have seen Rachel Reeves just normalise. There's two things I would do differently. straight off the bat that I think I'm fairly confident are low risk. First of all, capital gains tax equalise with income tax. So it's like, it doesn't matter. So there's no fiddling of it. You know, your capital gains tax is taxed at the same rate as income tax. Second thing I would do, I'd revisit that inheritance tax thing, because that was a needless fight with farmers. And I know it, you know, they are what they are, but it was a needless fight. What they could have done, I gather, if they'd have just changed, first of all, keeping it at 20% still encourages people to buy land for tax purposes. So put it back up to 40%, so there's no incentive to buy land to get your kids out of inheritance tax. But then for farmers, if you put it up to 40%, first of all, you're getting more from the people you're trying to tax. And secondly, then you can say for genuinely generational farmers, they don't have to pay it. And there were various ways to do it, but the way that probably works the easiest, the least hassle, was saying that inheritance tax of 40% on land, but it's only applicable when you come to sell the land. So if someone never sells it, then you then you don't pay the tax. So that way, farmers wouldn't be able to complain about anything. That genuine family farmers couldn't complain, and you've got 40% tax on the rich. So there's no point in anyone. So no one would buy land as a tax dodge for their kids.
I've got a way of saving 1.7 billion a year.
Have you?
Yeah. Legalised
Is it
drugs.
taking them into fuel payments against them?
No.
Oh, yeah, that's politically. What was the term in Yes, Prime Minister? Politically difficult.
Which is madness, because I'll say, okay, I want everyone to vote on this on Monday. And if we don't agree that we should legalise all drugs, we're going to test everyone's hair in the House of Commons. And if you're found to have cocaine in your system, we're going to deselect you and make sure that you never stand as an elected representative ever again.
The other thing I would also say as well is it wouldn't actually create that much money, because it would be irresponsible to just legalise a load of mind-bending drugs without spending money on making sure that there's proper awareness about appropriate times to use it.
You can only buy it from certain clinics, and you have to pay for them. And
clinics? Clinics?
Yeah. Healthcare.
Are you getting recreational drugs from a clinic?
Yeah, that's what they do in Switzerland and Portugal.
But we have got...
Go to a clinic.
We already have enough problems with our pharmacists without them selling...
No, not pharmacies. These are special drugs clinics that are set up and they're paid for by the drugs. So instead of a drug dealer spending their money on a top Mercedes car,
sure. So
spend it on
some of the money would have to go into the licensing and regulation oversight, then, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So it wouldn't actually raise that much.
No, but it would save the money. I didn't say raise it. I said save it. Make it cost neutral.
Right.
You know, you just put the cost of whatever it is, whatever it needs.
But nonetheless, it's
let all those people out of jail who are in there for non-violent drugs offences.
Sure, no problem. But politically tricky.
Only because no one wants to talk about it. John C. I'd want to talk about John C. for a moment, because John C's just dropped £10 in the Super Chat Fund. Thank you very much. The RAF plane targeted for a repaint does not belong to the RAF at all. It belongs ultimately to Polygon Global Partners LLP, a hedge fund for a private finance initiative.
All right. Are you saying we've got a private army in this country? If not, who flies the plane? If it's the RAF, it's our RAF plane. If it's used for our national security, it's a national security asset. David
Peacock says abolish the monarchy. But as I explained, the Crown Lands does bring in a lot of money for the...
Yeah, and also, I don't fancy having Boris Johnson as president. I think people need to be very careful about these things. Constitutional monarchies are very, very good. There are reforms that are needed. You know, yes. It shouldn't be for the Prime Minister to go to the King and say, check out these laws, they might affect you. That shouldn't happen.
How about if they do Nancy shit, they go to jail? How about that?
Well, that could have happened anyway, because it was not for us. The crime was not committed in the UK, so that was for foreign authorities to deal with.
Yeah.
So there should have been a criminal trial, but it wasn't for us to do. The crime wasn't committed in this country.
Yeah. Trippier says Thailand made cannabis illegal, and yeah, because it was a free-for-all. I'm saying that we have a prescribed set of ways of distributing the drugs that you have to go to a clinic.
I mean, we used to.
You've got to be on a register. You've got to say, yes, I'd like to be a drug addict, please. And then one day when you turn up and say, I don't want to be a drug addict anymore, they can shepherd you towards actual services to get you off the drugs, rather than have drug pushers who give drugs to children for free to get them hooked on the drugs, and then the kids are hooked on drugs for the rest of their lives. Like, stop the cycle. All these gangs, that are stabbing each other, they're all paid for by drugs. But they're not stealing crown fucking jewels. They're not running bloody, I don't know.
No government can do
underground gambling dens. They're dealing bloody drugs.
Yeah, I agree. But nonetheless, you will never get the politics isn't right. I mean, it used to be like. I mean, if we'd have left the Conservatives in power, maybe we would have gone back to that at some point, because they liked the Victorian age. And in Victorian age, you could. I mean, Sherlock Holmes was a heroin user.
He was.
You know, it was like you could just go to the apothecary and buy yourself a Christmas gift set of heroin and cocaine.
You get a nice little leather kit from Harrods with a needle in and a tourniquet. Great days. But yeah, I've got another way of actually making, right. You know, that's only 1.7 billion. How about I tell you that I've got a fantastic way of making 40 billion pounds more for the Exchequer each year. So each year, Phil.
It would and it wouldn't. So it's what we've lost. We wouldn't get it back straight away. But I know what you're going to say. Well,
I think we should rejoin the EU. There you go. Hey, happy days. Yeah. All the money we'll ever want, and then some.
Well, we
buy everyone a nice dress.
But we can get some more of this money just by doing bits anyway. I'd be very interested. See, here's the thing. I gave Labour a lot of license on some of the things where I could sort of see where maybe it would be politically difficult. I'll give you two things that I can accept were probably politically difficult to do. But now that I know that Labour don't do their research on policies, they did do it one time, but now they're in government, they clearly don't. I'm now a bit more suspicious. So I'll give you the two. First of all, so in terms of the employers' national insurance contributions, if instead Labour had said, when the Tories started cutting national insurance, the employees' contributions last year, if Labour had said, we don't think they can afford to do this, so instead of promising what they promised, instead what they said is, we are going to put the national insurance, VAT and income tax rates to where they were at the start of 2024, but we will not raise them above that. At the time, I thought to myself, Labour may have tested this out and found that a lot of voters wanted to keep those tax cuts. So I'm now thinking, yeah, you didn't check, did you? You just went on gut instinct. So they could have done that differently, potentially. And the second one is on the customs union, because the customs union doesn't tread on the freedom of movement toes. I see no, and at the moment, although I accept that a lot of people don't want a lot of discussion on Brexit issues, I get that. Nonetheless, the Tories were able to join the CPTPP really very easily. We could join the customs unit. It doesn't require following any EU rules. We're already agreeing to follow a load of EU rules with it. So it's politically easy to follow a load of EU rules.
It's the next step. I think they're setting up to do this next year, Phil.
Well, I don't know about next year. I think for the next Parliament, but because they've rolled it out for this Parliament. But I wonder now what evidence they had for doing that, because I can understand the single market. I can understand there are some thorny issues over that at the moment, but the customs union I don't get, and that would bring in extra money. Because at the moment we have a massive amount of smuggling going on.
What he can say is, I said that we weren't going to join the customs union. Doesn't stop us joining a customs union. That's the way you get around it. It's like the line of attorney at law.
That's what I was thinking years ago. I used to say that in my videos until Labour specifically rolled it out. I used to say, well, it's easy. They just call it the British Customs Union. Piece of piss.
Yeah.
We just call it the British Customs Union.
We make our down payment.
Yeah, we could sell it as we're making our own customs union and inviting the EU to join ours. It'd be a load of bollocks, but you could do that.
Yeah, exactly. It's just semantics. Captain Coconut, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Did we know during the Conservatives' tenure, the drugs minister husband was the only person in the UK who could grow cannabis legally? Oh my God, that is mad.
You can grow it legally though. You can't, I can't, but it is because it is used medicinally.
It is.
I don't think we import it all, do we? There must be some legal farms.
Now there is because of medical marijuana being legalized, but up to quite recently it wasn't. Funnily enough, heroin, which is sort of the bête noire of all drugs, isn't it? Heroin's the worst one. That's never left the medical register. It's always been on there. You've always been able to get it from your GP, but GPs were very, very reticent to supply it, which is unfortunate because for pain relief for people who have had heart operations, it is the best.
Yeah.
It's the absolute best.
The issue is, I mean, just to give you an idea of what heroin does. So they did some experiments on rats because rats are great for experiments for these things. And they had the rats that they got hooked on heroin. And what they did this thing. It's quite cruel, really, but it illustrates the point. So they had 2 tracks. At the end of each track, they could scuttle across. There'd be a thing at the end of it. And on one of them, there was some food. And on the other one, there was heroin. And it's not that they chose the heroin over the food. It was worse than this. So they electrified the track. So it was actually quite painful for them to cross it. And no matter how hungry they were, they could literally be starving. The pain was too much to go across the track for the food, but they would do it for the heroin.
Yep, because it's that addictive.
Yeah.
KC, thank you very much for the, or is it K? Is it KC? KC. I'm going to say KC. Thank you very much for the £5 super chat, KC. Speaking of the EU, any news on the Pan-Euro-Mediterranean Convention? Apparently, the EU blocked us.
I hadn't heard that the EU blocked us on it. I have also, unfortunately, have to say I haven't heard any more on it, which is disappointing. But why would the EU block us on it?
I don't. I'll have to look into that, KC. One Angry Pagan saying this: the Danish Social Democrats turned socially conservative and squeezed out their version of reform. So, this is what I think Labour are trying to imitate.
It may well be in Denmark. It has to be said it has got a left-wing government, but they are also. The thing is, I don't know where people get this idea. Like, I think it's because in this country and in America and a couple of others, the right wing tend to be anti-immigration, but the thing is, immigration, they're not really. Like, the right wing love immigration. Whereas most of the opposition to immigration comes from the left. It's just that we've been used to the left wing in the last couple of generations, I guess, becoming more socially progressive than maybe used to be the case. But like, there's a lot of people on the left don't like immigration because they would prefer it if we had, even if it means fewer jobs and a smaller economy, but more bargaining power. They see immigration as a threat to bargaining power for workers. Whereas the right wing love immigration, really, despite what they say, because it's lots of cheap labour.
But the more that we restrict immigration,
with fewer rights,
the more we restrict visas coming over here. So we need people to come on visas. And if you make it completely tied to their employment over here, then their employers can take the piss and pay them fuck all. And that actually drives down wages for everybody else. So what you actually want is a fair system of visas, because we do need people to come over, that allows people coming over here to bargain for better wages and better conditions, because that raises it for everyone. So it's kind of counterintuitive, but we actually need more rights for foreign workers, and that will raise the wages. But
nonetheless, that is why it's no surprise that you have a left-wing in like Denmark has a left-wing government that is very anti-immigration, because immigration generally creates more friction with the left than the right. We've just had this weird situation in this country where there's a lot of left-wing liberal people, and on the right wing, a lot of right-wing, like nativist, I suppose, in this particular case, because people who don't like the idea of immigration. But generally speaking, I mean, the extreme right wing allows for unfettered, like the Tories keep talking about uncontrolled immigration, but the extreme right wing is uncontrolled immigration, because it's the free movement of everything, capital, people, everything. It's like the EU on crack.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's one version of it, isn't it? That's a libertarian sort of thing. But it's only for the rich, mate. It's not for the rest of us. It's just
the extreme right wing is the market decides everything.
Yeah.
including who they employ and where they come from,
because the market is
and what they pay
always
them,
right and
and
noble
what they
and
pay them.
lovely. And we don't need governments to, actually.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so things Labour need to fix. Public still don't know what Labour stands for. That is a common refrain. We see it time and time again when people are being interviewed. What does Starmer stand for? People don't know. They need a narrative. Like, I hate Thatcher, but at least she had a narrative. I think Tony Blair had a narrative as well. I think that Starmer's really struggled with this. And
I think it's really easy. And I go back to my earlier point.
Find the mission.
You don't even have to do that. Like, I would say, because you've just mentioned there Thatcher and Blair, people like that. But if you ask people, so what is their mission? I think they'd go a bit, I'm not sure. They only thought they had one because they constantly talked optimistically about stuff that was coming and stuff has been done. And that's all you have to do. You don't actually, the public don't have the attention span or the inclination to listen to an actual plan. They're not going to listen to a plan or a vision. What they want is to be made to feel optimistic. That's what Labour needs to do. You need to make people optimistic. And because you know what? Some of the problems Rachel Reeves has got right now is because of that collapse in consumer confidence, which massively coincided with Labour telling people the economy's shit. It's like, that's what you're supposed to do in opposition.
Yeah. Don't do that.
You're not in government. All of a sudden, everything's supposed to be blue skies and sunshine, right?
Yeah.
You're supposed to be saying everything's going to be brilliant. We're doing this. We're already on with this. We're doing this. This week we've done this. It's going to take time, I'm afraid. But in a couple of years, you're going to be. Oh, it's going to be wonderful. Absolutely marvelous.
But the thing is, I mean, even like Rishi Sunak said, it was Rwanda. They talked about Rwanda all the fucking time. It's Rwanda this, Rwanda that. But Boris Johnson, the first year, it was all about Brexit this, Brexit that, blah, 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 right? And if you ask the same thing for people now about Labour, they'll say, well, it's U-turns, isn't it?
This is the problem. And the thing is, the media are constantly going to be promoting these things. Constantly. They will never promote anything good that Labour are doing. Labour's only chance, if they're going to rely on the mainstream media, is to not give them any fodder. But that's probably important. You are going to, they shouldn't have cocked up this badly, but you are going to cock up. You are. A Labour MP is going to say something crass, and then that's going to be on the front page. And then, a Labour councillor is going to defect to Reform UK, and then that's on the front page. So you've got all of it. Actually, there's quite a funny one in Wales earlier this week. But there's, so Labour need to do it themselves. They need to and it's really easy. All Starmer needs to do, or if he's out of the country, someone else, get them into Downing Street, get all the top political correspondents in London into Downing Street. Anyone who wants to turn up, come around. Don't do the press conference bollocks. Get a load of, Humza Yousaf did one thing really good when he took over from the SNP. You just get a load of sofas. Get a nice comfy room. Yeah. Beanbags, sofas, whatever they want. Cup of tea, croissants, get the stuff in. It takes them, it'll take them half an hour to get there and to get through. It could take them more than half an hour to get through security and everything like that. So they're in the room, getting your croissants and their coffee or orange juice or whatever. Then you come in, sit down, ask how everyone is, just that'll waste 15 minutes. You're using this to kill their day, basically. Then you start talking about whatever you want to talk about, have a discussion about that, and then they've got to then leave. That takes more time to get back to the office. Half the day's gone. These are the top political correspondents in the country. All they can do for the rest of the day is write about what you were talking about. They will put their spin on it. You cannot stop them putting their own spin on it, but you can decide what they're going to talk about.
What's worse than being talked about? Not being talked about, especially in politics. And I think that we're talking about narratives earlier. There needs to be clear before and after stories. This is how things were under the Tories. Yeah. Look what we've done. Look on my works, ye mighty and despair.
It's so paint by numbers, because people may say, well, Keir Starmer, he doesn't come across that natural and things like that. And it doesn't need to. Like PMQs, he's fine in PMQs. He's absolutely fine.
It's only because Kemi Badnoch's so bloody awful. How did she not land a punch this week, Phil?
Because she is
seriously.
But
she's a professional politician. How? Is she so bad?
You've got similar dimwits in the media, Laura Kunsberg and Beth Rigby and people like that. They're all useless. Like there are almost
Can we also say
no
Robert
decent
Peston
journalists.
just to get a little bit of gender balance here?
Nick
There are some men
Robinson,
who are
get
just
him right.
rubbish.
Just get them all in.
Richard
Get 'em all
Madeley.
in. And I'll tell you another thing they should do as well. If they did this, I'm not doing this for me. I wouldn't do. But they should invite some and do it on a round table. So it's not a representative of every mainstream media every day. You know, you do it. You know, you get them all in each week. All of them will get a turn each week. But you do a bit of a round robin. You know, but at any one time there might only be a few, because you don't want it to be too focused on the mainstream media either. Invite some people in who do news on social media.
Yeah.
Include some right-wing ones as well. Include some right-wing ones. Get them in. You know, and start, and that way you're helping promote the idea that you've also got. Because then, when the BBC are reporting on a question that was asked, it'd have to be, oh, Graham of Politics Social asked this question or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
And then we get you know, bit of advertising for the channel, which would be nice. But yeah,
they might not invite you, but you know, it would do them good to invite people with large audiences, because they will also go back and talk about what they've done.
Yeah.
And you know, they may just, if they come from some distance away, they may set up in like one of the parts.
Labour have got policies to be proud of, but they just can't sell them, and they're bleeding working class support to the Greens and Refuck. And you know, the youth voters,
and they don't have any working class policies
about the Gaza, you know, bungle. And I understand, Phil. I completely get it. It's diplomacy. You've got to, you know, pursue dickhead Bibi through the courts in one hand, but on the other hand, publicly say yes, Israel's an ally of ours. I do get that, but it's not. It's
America that's the ally.
Yeah,
but we have to describe Israel because it's really this simple. You know, in the event of a world war, which gets increasingly more likely, in the event of a world war, we're not going to sit it out. We can't sit it out. So whose side are we on? We're not on China's side, so we're on America. Everyone will be either on. Some countries may get away with sitting it out, like they did last time. You can get away with it. A country like ours can't get away with it. So we'd have to be on someone's side. It's going to be America's side. Let's be honest. In order for our own protection, it's going to be America's side.
America's making it more likely there's going to be a fucking world war.
Yeah, it is. Well, so I mean, China is as well. I mean, let's be honest. You know, if it starts up, it's probably because China invades Taiwan or something.
No, I get that. But I'm just saying that it's losing.
Trump is not helping.
And there needs to be more proactive engagement with voters on housing, NHS, civil rights, environment, all this kind of stuff. This is stuff that Labour, you know, it should be their bread and butter. They're the party that created the NHS in the first place.
I am just going to say, though, Labour probably at the moment shouldn't be talking about civil rights.
Okay, all right. Well,
we're assuming we're talking about with the policies as they currently have them. So if we were advising them on communication, not policy, I wouldn't advise them to talk about civil rights at all. I would, however, although actually young people are turning a little bit more authoritarian anyway, but that's because democracy looks like it's failing. But I would certainly talk about, like, you know, every day, like in fact, you can do the same topics each day, but do a different thing. Monday could be some aspect of the workers' rights coming online. Doesn't matter when it's coming online, just talk about why we're doing it. Next day could be something on net zero, tackling net zero. Next day could be something on housing. Next day could be something on the NHS. Next day could be a round robin of some other things. It could be what we're doing to help the young people. It could be specifically targeted at young people. It could be we're doing these things for this. You know, one of the things they promised in the manifesto was actually a big boost in mental health support, specifically for young people.
Yeah.
Targets at young people first because they're the ones most in need and got the rest of their lives ahead of them.
Yeah.
So it probably does make sense more to start on developing proper mental health support for young people first.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so and on that note, actually, there's on September 29th, Phil and I will be in Liverpool for during the Labour Party conference. We'll be doing a fringe event in the evening of Monday the 29th of September, and we'll be talking about exactly this, like Labour needing to get control of the social media narrative and the media narrative in general, and how they could go about doing that. Okay, so just to wrap up, the immigration rhetoric.
We can't wrap up now.
Why?
England haven't lost a wicket since we've been online.
Okay, all right, I'll keep going for a little bit. But yeah, just things that Labour need to be doing, as far as I'm concerned. stop the immigration rhetoric. They've got a meeting next week with Macron. Hopefully there's going to be a deal going through, which is going to be some kind of replication of the Dublin Agreement that we used to have with the rest of the EU, but we don't anymore because we left. Obviously there's going to have to be some concessions to France with this, but the dream is, the best we can do is having a processing centre in Calais.
Yeah,
and if anyone comes across on a boat, we can send them back.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I would do. In terms of the concession, though, it's not actually going to be much of a concession, I gather. I think the plan, I gather the rest of the EU aren't happy at Macron for this, by the way. So as I understand it, this is how it would work. So there are people who've already claimed asylum in the EU and been rejected. Yeah. So what Starmer wants to say is, well, we're using the same laws, you see. So if an EU country would reject you, so would we. So we're just going to, we don't want to have to accept your asylum claim. So the idea is Macron will say, okay, well, these people, because they've already had an asylum claim in the EU and failed it, we will get rid of them for you. In return, here are some asylum seekers with family links to Britain. Can you take them?
Yeah.
And the British government will be more than delighted with that, because if they've got family links, you know what that means? It means they'll have accommodation. They can go and live with them. That means they don't have to work out where to house them. So that actually works out all right.
Well, they should be able to allowed to work while their claim
is
being processed. I mean, this is so obvious to everyone. Because why can't they fucking work?
And unbelievable that people go, oh, and these are the drains in society. Well, let them pissy well work then.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, Farage is still dominating headlines. Labour need to do something about that. And Labour, like we've been saying, they need to lead the narrative and not just always be reacting to it. It looks scared. It looks
invite them in. If you invite them in every single day or weekday, then you are forcing, because all of the top political correspondents in the country, they're not going to stay away. They're not going to, okay, I can't be asked to go to Downing Street. They will go there. Yeah. They want those croissants.
They do want those croissants. They do the really nice almond ones.
I don't like almonds. But but that's okay. They're not inviting me. That's fine. Put on. But that's what they should do. Go there, get them in every single day, and you cannot dictate how they're going to report on it, but you can dictate what you will know what those top correspondents are going to talk about, because you're the one who's talking about it.
Yeah,
you are setting the agenda.
Yeah,
it's easy. It's not even difficult. That's why I go back to, they are just at this point stupid. It's usually, I don't use that word insultingly, I mean it literally. That it is stupid, because it's so easy to do. Stop moving camera.
But yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and I think that this is something where we all need to just look at, like, if we do have any access to anyone in Labour. Well, this is the thing, because Labour's policies are one thing, right? And no matter whether they do good stuff or whether they do bad stuff, the fact that they haven't got control of the narrative does them no favours. It means they can't crow their good stuff they've done from the rooftops, but it means they can't spin the bad stuff either. You know, spin this week's debacle over the welfare bill. It could have been spun as, well, we're the party of democracy. We just love being democratic, and obviously if we've got our members of parliament and they're not happy with it, we want everyone to be happy. And therefore,
the thing I was thinking, what I was thinking with PMQs this week, and Badenoch started on that. I was thinking, if I were in Starmer's position, this is what I would have said. So a few years ago, the Conservatives, who have absolutely zero respect for parliamentary democracy, illegally prorogued Parliament. Whereas this government values parliamentary democracy. This government values parliamentary democracy. We think it's a real strength for Britain. And he could have just said that.
Yeah.
All he had to say. And things like that, having pre-prepared lines like that, because he knew he was going to be asked about this. What else was she going to ask about?
Yeah.
Pre-prepared lines, it means you don't even have to answer the question. It's beautiful. They should have just sent Starmer in with 6 things that he wanted to say. Because it doesn't matter what the question was. The questions were all going to be themes on the same thing. He knew what the questions were going to be. It was so obvious.
Yeah, but even if they ask a question that's completely left field, you can always just give them the answer you want to answer the question that you want to answer,
want to
not
be
the
asked,
question
yeah.
that you were given. That's a talent that all politicians,
I mean, I don't
unfortunately, should have.
appreciate it. I'm not. Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not
I know,
like
but it's
defending
spin.
it, by the way.
It's the
But it is
whole.
as part. Yeah, it is part and parcel of politics.
Yeah, yeah. Anne Phillips is worried about One Angry Pagan's spanner of doom. Spanner of doom. Made up number made to comfort us by the financial sector. Glad it went up though, says Captain Coconut, talking about the credit score, I think. A credit score? I don't know. Captain Coconut says having a processing centre in France would be a hidden bonus. We would have to retain data on them, so if they are rejected and come over by boat, we can move them almost immediately. Yes, that's the whole point. That's why I've been saying for ages, we need to do this processing before.
The only thing, and I don't know for certain, but I just heard a little, but I don't know it's absolutely definite. I think the reason why they won't do it, and it's so stupid, is because then they worry the more asylum claimants, because it's like they're sort of reducing the friction to claim an asylum. Yeah. And yes, it probably would, but even if it doubled, I don't think it would double, but even if it did double, because asylum is such a small proportion of overall immigration numbers, which are tumbling anyway, just naturally. Yeah. People notice the visible signs of it. There are a lot of people, particularly Reform UK voters in some polling, that actually think that asylum represents like a lot, like 30, 40, 50% of all immigration. It's not, it's 2 and a bit percent, 2.5%.
Fuck all.
So, so even if you double that, if you get rid of the visible signs of it, and if you have a thing, like you can even lord it over, you can even say, once it's all set up, these people arrived by small boat. Well, Border Force picked them up and took them right back to France. Yeah, Keir Starmer can do that.
Yeah.
And that would be worth having more asylum claims. Because it looks like the government's, because that's what there's a lot of people who are not actually anti-asylum, but they don't like the system because it looks like the way people are describing it to them. It's like people queue jumping. They don't realise there isn't actually a queue anywhere.
There is no queue.
But that's what it's like. It's
but you can
perceived
see
unfairness of it.
If you live in Kent, and you live near the sea, you can see people coming in on boats. You can't see people filling out forms in another country to claim asylum here. You don't see that. You don't have people waiting in the airports to pick out the people who are coming in on visas.
Yeah.
And so
you could.
No one had a problem with Ukrainians coming here, and I don't think that's just racism. I think that is or Hong Kongers, or Afghan translators. We didn't have a problem with it, and we didn't have a problem with it because it was done, done by the book, and we didn't see them coming in. It's not like they came in on hot air balloons or something, like at a big ceremony. And
so like going back to Napoleon's plan. That was part of his plan for invading Britain. Hot air balloons. He was going to have the first world's air force. Wow,
that wouldn't have worked out because one arrow
wouldn't have worked out. Yeah,
you're stuffed, aren't you?
Well, we had guns back then. We didn't need arrows, Graham. You're a historian. We had rifles.
One rifle, one musket. Might call it political cinematography, really. Yes, that's what it is. And Donkey is saying, I maintain the grid is real and working. Okay, cool. Chip saying, very impressive spring steel, makes me think of Sprinky though. There's very random comments coming through on the chat here.
I suspect some of them are a consequence of discussions ongoing.
Yeah. Nick says, tiptoeing around the eggshells for the next 4 years, and only to see Farage get in anyway would have been futile.
But they're not going to.
Just there ditch the red lines already and pitch the growing anti-Brexit majority.
It's not. It's stable at the moment. It will be growing. But the thing is, we're not going to. What's happened in the last year is not going to be happening each year for the next 4 years, because a lot of it was this fixing the foundations, as they would describe it. And yes, Reeves has still got to do some fine tuning to the budget, and she'll probably have to do it every year, but it's largely done. And what should be coming out now is all the delivery. The problem is still going to be the communicate. They still got to communicate it, but they will at least have some more positive stuff to talk about after this year. Yeah. In fact, hopefully as soon as after this summer.
Well, yeah,
But
and we'll be there at the conference, well, the fringe event near the conference, asking the question, why are Labour's comms so shite? That
yeah,
might be the name of the actual talk. What do you reckon?
sure.
Get into trouble. Okay, so Phil, I think we'll leave it at that. I'm sorry if you're worried about England and their wickets. How are they doing?
I mean, they're still well behind because their top order were a shambles, but they're at least not going to have to follow on, and they haven't lost any wickets so far. We've been online.
Well, that's good.
What's the betting on who loses the wicket as soon as we go off?
Well, yeah, but it's okay. I'm wearing my magic underwear, so they'll my lucky underwear. So we'll be all right. MZ, also we need to sort out electoral reform. Proportional representation is securely in place. Then every vote will be worth something. Less votes splitting.
Or most votes. But we'd certainly have. That would stop. And this is what annoys me when people think, oh, but proportional representation would help reform UK. No, it would not. It would keep them out of office forever. Because they wouldn't work with anyone else. It wouldn't keep the right out of power, but it would keep them out of power in their current form because they wouldn't work with anyone. And they wouldn't be able to get... Because remember, just getting 50% of the vote's not enough. If you have a majority of like one MP, that's not enough. You can't get anything done with that. Especially Reform UK MPs, they'll be the most rebellious of the lot. So they need probably a good 60% of the seats. They're not going to get 60% of the vote.
Yeah. But I could see them doing a pact with, a coalition with the Tories. The Tories went in with the DUP, for Christ's sake.
Fine.
They're right.
No, they didn't. They didn't go in. First of all, the DUP are basically just Northern Irish Tories. So they're basically the same anyway. So that's
Tories,
fine.
come on.
Secondly, they didn't go in. They just gave them money. They just gave them money in return for a supply and confidence deal.
Was it £10 billion of our money? Was it?
Yeah.
They gave to the DUP.
Something like that.
Fuck.
Yeah.
It
wasn't given to the They didn't put it in their pockets. It was for spending. To be fair, like
spending on the DUP.
It was spent according to what the DUP thought it should be spent on.
So it was spent on Protestants then. That's nice. Anyway, right. So we'll leave it at that because we have been rabbiting on for 2 hours, and I'm very, very sorry if England then lose a wicket because we go off air. But I've got stuff to do. Got the in-laws coming today. Got to tidy up this room. It looks tidy, this bit, but then you look over there and it's just a fucking tip. I'm very glad I don't have a camera that follows me around the room.
Mine doesn't even look tidy over there, but it's way tidier than it is in front.
Anyway, so thanks for doing this, Phil. And like I say, on the 29th of September, Phil and I are going to be having a chat with some others and see how we can get. Maybe we might be able to get Femi on board as well. To talk about Labour's comms and how bloody awful they are. And if you'd like to join us on that, just stay tuned. We'll let you know more details in the future. And I'll be back at 9:30 tonight with Friday Night Social. And Phil, are you around tonight, or are you off? You got better things to do?
I'm busy. Definitely got better things to do.
Busy. It's fine. Anyway, thanks very much for joining us this afternoon, Phil, and thank you watching this for joining us, and also thanks for all the wonderful comments and the super chats. Really appreciate them. One thing that I'll just ask before we go, if you could just give us a like, really, really appreciate it. It doesn't cost anything, but it does help the channel out immeasurably. And until next time, thank you for watching. Hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.